Okay. Okay, so good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everyone, kind of. I know that a few of you have been able to share your screen, to share your video a little bit. So if you're able to, that would be great. It's been a long time since we've done a meeting like this, and I did not want to do it through Zoom. I was really hoping we could do this in person, and we had reserved a room and everything, but unfortunately, we got directives from the university that we had to be completely virtual until the end of this month. So we had to move this meeting online, but I hope in the future we can have larger group meetings where we can gather everyone together, and so we can all see each other. It's been a really long time since I've seen many of you, so it is nice to see some familiar names and a few faces. So I'm going to first start by just asking that, as always, if you can mute yourself, so that there's no feedback for, coming back in through the speakers and so people can try to hear as best as possible. And so I'm going to try to keep this on the shorter side. I don't like doing these long type of lectures. And this isn't meant to be a lecture. We really felt like it'd be helpful to kind of regroup a little bit and talk about some things. I know being virtual the past, I guess, almost 2 years now, which is crazy, has made it difficult sometimes communication wise to be clear about some of our expectations or just general things to know that are important for EOF. And so we thought it would be a good idea to bring us all back together and just kind of go through some of everyone's requirements and kind of go through there. Okay.
Can you let the dog out?
If you are, I hear some talking in the background, so if you are unmuted, please just check to make sure you are muted. I'm not going to be able to mute people while I'm presenting. So, okay. So I want to kind of go through, I always like doing a little bit of agenda so you know what's up and what's going to happen during our meeting. So we're going to talk about our status for the rest of the month, about being virtual and the ways that you can reach us. We're going to talk about, we like to call it responsibilities. So we use the word compliance a lot, but what are your responsibilities as an EOF student? So we'll kind of go over that again, because I know some students have said that they don't fully understand what is expected of them. So we want to make sure we're all on the same page moving forward into the spring semester. We'll talk a little bit about how funding works and some important reminders in terms of funding that come up a lot during the semester that I want to make sure that you all know so that it's helpful for you as you move forward. And then we're going to leave some time at the end, and we're going to have some breakout rooms with your respective EOF counselor. And this will give you a chance to connect with them in a group, maybe ask any questions that you have, say hello, in addition to the one-on-one meetings that you're going to have. So, so first, I'm going to just go out of the main screen here. And I want to do first is to ask for you to let us know how you are feeling about things. So a couple of things that you can do is you can scan the QR code that's on the screen. And then I am going to also put this link in the chat really quick, but first I'll give you a moment. So if you have your phone and you have a scanner, you should be able to hold it up to the screen and it'll bring you to Mentimeter. And so we want to know how you're feeling about the spring semester. As you know, it kicked off yesterday. Maybe you had a class yesterday, maybe you didn't, maybe today's your first day of classes. And so we would love to know how you're feeling about the spring semester. So I'm going to stop my share really quick so I can throw it in the chat. So you can also go to this link in the chat and it will bring you to the same place as the QR code. And so I'm going to share my screen again. And then so we'll go back here. So I'm going to give everyone a minute or so to complete that. So I think it's supposed to ask you how you're feeling, and it's going to come up as hopefully like a word cloud. Here we go. So some of you have already responded. So I'm seeing things like nervous, anxious, overwhelmed, supported. That makes me happy when I see things like that. Supported, confident, that's awesome. Focused, great. Always good to start off strong and focus. Overwhelmed, eager, tired. Yes, I'm tired too. Curious, I love that. Optimistic, high anxiety, determined. Okay. I am loving all of these. Pizza Hut, I'm not really sure what that is, but we'll leave that in there. Sluggish. Okay. So I'm seeing a really nice mixed bag here, which is kind of what I expected, but I think this is, it's a lot when you're starting the new semester and you're coming off fall. So you might have a lot of mixed feelings depending on how your fall semester went, right? Maybe you had a really strong fall semester, so you're feeling confident and you're ready to tackle spring. Maybe fall didn't go how you thought it was going to go. And it may be making you a little anxious about the spring semester. What is that going to bring? Are you going to have the same struggles? And so I appreciate everyone's kind of honesty and willing to be open and share how you're feeling. All of these feelings are, validated and okay. I expect these feelings to shift a lot as the semester goes. You're going to have weeks and days that you're feeling great, and other days where you're like, why am I doing this? I think I need to, stop going to school. And all of these things are valid, but I hope, and part of the reason why I asked you guys to participate in this is so that you could see on the screen too, that you're not the only one with these feelings, right? So maybe you are going in very anxious or nervous, but seeing that other people are also feeling the same way. So knowing that you're not alone, even though I know virtual learning, hopefully it's only for this month really, but can feel very isolating. And so you're not really sure how other people are doing or feeling. And often we always feel like people have their lives together because that's what is presented outward, but know that you're not the only one who's experiencing the various feelings that you're experiencing. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. So let me go here. Okay. So we did this. And now I want to talk about our operating status a little bit. And so I did post this in Canvas, and you probably received a lot of messages from the university about Rutgers operating status through the month of January. And so we received guidance that we are going to be virtual through January 31st, which means all meetings, so your one-on-ones with your counselor, workshops, any drop-in appointments, things like that will be conducted virtually. No one is currently in our office right now. So if you need to reach us, the best way is honestly through email, or if you have, your counselor's phone number, or you can message them through Raptor Connect. So there's many, many ways you can get in touch with us. But the best ways right now is through email. After that point, unless we receive some other guidance from the university that we're going to continue being virtual in some format, we're going to go back to how it was last semester. So last semester, we had a mixture of in-person and virtual appointments. So we're going to keep that going. So you have the option to schedule in person with your counselor, or you'll have the option to schedule online based on, your preferences, your needs. And same thing with workshops. We have a lot of our workshops will be online this semester. We noted that last semester, a lot of you preferred the virtual ones. We will still have some in-person workshops, but this kind of helps just in case, something needs to shift again and we have to go back online. But most of our workshops, and we have a lot of them this semester, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, is going to be virtual. So, and your counselors will be offering drop-in hours through the rest of the month. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, so on Tuesdays, 9 a.m. to 12, and Thursdays, 3 to 6. So I put that information on Canvas. It's also on our website. I will re-put it on Canvas again this week, but I linked all of their Zoom and their WebEx, so you feel free to drop in during those hours, especially as we're going through add and drop period. You might be having questions about your classes, your financial aid, all of those type of things. So make sure to check that. Okay. So now I want to talk about what I always say is like the not so fun things. So responsibilities and compliance. As you all know, as you started EOF, we talked a lot about the importance, like what do we expect from you, right? And to receive funding and to be part of the program, we do have expectations of you as a student. I like to think of it as you meeting us halfway. So we try to make this experience as easy as possible for you. We don't try to ask too much. We know that you have a lot more going on in your life than being a student. But there's some very basic, what I call the 3 C's of being an EOF student, that will help you kind of, when you're thinking about what do I have to do for EOF, just think of these 3 things and it hopefully will bring it all back to you. So the first one is to complete compliance, and we'll talk a little bit about compliance in a second, what that looks like. To check Canvas, and we'll look at the Canvas page and I'll kind of show you some important things that you should be checking out. And then communication. Okay. So before I move forward, I just want to make sure I'm checking the chat. Okay. So we do have our wonderful counselors here as well, of course. And so if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will also take some time at the end to answer any questions, but they will be monitoring the chat as well. So I just want to make sure I put that out there. Okay. So in general, as an EOF student, there's 2 main things that you have to do. You have to meet with your EOF counselor regularly, and you have to attend workshops. I should say 3. You also have to meet with your academic advisor each semester. How many meetings you have, both with your counselor and the workshops you have to attend, depends on your class year. So as a freshman and sophomore, you're required to meet 2 times a month with your EOF counselor and attend your monthly cohort workshops. So, you know, Mr. Jones does your freshman workshops, Mrs. Rubright does your sophomore workshops. So they have a monthly cohort workshop. You're required to attend those, plus 1 additional workshop each month. That additional workshop can be any workshop, but, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a second, there's a but there, so like an asterisk. If you're a junior and senior, you're only required to attend a meeting with your counselor 1 time a month, and then also attend 2 of your cohort workshops. So your beginning workshop, so they're usually called Welcome Back, Let's Create an Action Plan. And then the last workshop, which is kind of going over your action plan, what did you meet your goals for the semester? And then 2 additional workshops. So those could be any of the workshops in your cohort. So Mrs. Waters does your junior and senior workshops. So it could be those if you're like, I want to go to all of these and that's going to be my workshops. Great. But then there's also a ton of other open workshops too that you can choose from. And there's also stuff on campus that you can choose from. And I'm going to get into that for a second. And then all students have to meet with their academic advisor each semester. We require this because while your EOF counselor is going to help you with, you know, making sure you're in the right classes, making sure you're getting the right support and all of that, at the end of your journey here at Rutgers-Camden, they're not the one who certify you for graduation. It's going to be your academic advisor. So they're going to be the one who says, yes, you met all the requirements, you're good to go, and you're ready to graduate. Or they could conversely say, no, you missed the class, or this credit didn't fulfill what you're supposed to fulfill. So it's really important that you're consistently meeting with your academic advisor, because often major requirements change. So every couple of years, they might, you know, change course requirements, and we don't always get those updates. Those go directly to the advisors first. So it's really important that you're meeting with them regularly to ensure that you're on track for your graduation. So and having a plan in place with them. In terms of workshops, we have a lot of open workshops this semester. I'm going to show you Canvas in a few minutes, and it'll show you some of the open workshops that we have. We have a ton of financial literacy workshops. We have some wellness workshops this semester. We have all sorts of topics to choose from. We like to give you guys a wide variety based on things that you've told us in the past is really helpful, and just also things that we've noted that may be helpful for you as you're kind of navigating the semester, both virtually and in person. So what we ask of you, though, is that when you are kind of putting a plan together, that you're working with your counselor to figure out your plan for the semester in terms of workshops. If you notice, workshops tend to be front loaded, meaning that, so for this semester, for example, you're going to see a lot of workshops in February, a lot of workshops in March, not so many in April. So you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're like, oh no, I'm missing a workshop and there's none being offered now because it's almost the end of the semester. So having a plan in place is going to be really helpful. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So we created some new forms for you guys to use this semester. One of them is a workshop plan. It is part of your responsibility agreement. And so the workshop plan is going to be something you do at the beginning of each semester with your counselor, with the hope that this will help you kind of get a plan in place, put things in your calendar, know, okay, these are the 4 to 6 workshops I have to attend, get them all planned out and ready to go so that you don't have to really think about it. And it also will help you kind of really be intentional about what workshops you're picking. While we give you guys a really wide variety because we want you to have options, we're also really highly encouraging that you're picking workshops that are going to actually be helpful for you. So we want you to go to a workshop just to fulfill a requirement, because honestly, that's a waste of your time. It's a waste of our time. You really should be picking something that you're like, I need this. If you're really big on financial wellness, so you're like, I'm definitely going to go to all these financial workshops because I really need to get my budget together. Or maybe you're struggling a little bit, and for example, the Wellness Center this semester is offering workshops on how to manage anxiety and manage depression. So maybe you're like, those are the workshops that I need this semester, and it shifts all the time. And so what we're asking is that you're creating a plan with your counselor, and that you're going to work with them to figure out, these are the workshops I have to go to as part of my cohort. And let's talk about the other workshops that are available to me and what makes sense for me and my goals and where I'm at right now in my personal life, in my academic life, and what's going to help me get to the next step, what's going to help me be successful this semester, and so forth. And we understand that workshops, it can change, right? So you can plan out your whole semester and then things come up and you can't go to a workshop. The form that your counselor will give you is a fillable PDF form, so you can adjust it. So if you're like, I missed this workshop, something came up, I couldn't go, then you guys can be like, okay, well, let's figure out the next workshop that you can go to that makes sense. So it's a working plan, as I'd like to say. So you're going to work on it constantly throughout the semester. And hopefully this will help you remember to attend workshops better, but also just be more intentional and attend workshops that really matter to you, and are going to be helpful for you as you're kind of navigating your goals for the semester. So I'm going to go back really quick to this responsibility agreement. So each of you will meet with your counselor. Hopefully, if you haven't already, hopefully you've scheduled your first meeting with them, or you have a meeting set up already for the beginning of the semester. But they're going to go through this responsibility agreement, your compliance forms with you more one-on-one, to get into more detail, because I really only wanted to just provide a brief overview today, and talk to you about your requirements. And there will be a portion, you can't really see it here, but you'll see there's a portion where you sign it and say, yes, I understand. We talked about this. I know what I have to do. We're good to go. And then they'll keep that on file so that if you ever have any questions about, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. What am I supposed to do? How many meetings am I supposed to have? They can bring this back up and you guys can talk about it. And then the workshop plan will be part of this compliance. So it'll be a file that's kept together, and they can also bring this up at any point during your meeting if you're wondering what workshops that you had picked out for the semester. One important thing about the workshops is that you need to complete a workshop log. Now, this is something that we started last semester, and I know that some students weren't really sure how to utilize it, where to find it, forgot to fill it out. So there's a lot of things, and we know we kind of just threw that at you without much explanation. So I wanted to take a little bit of time today to talk about the workshop form and show you where you can find it. I'm going to pause here for a second though, and look at the chat. Okay. So I see our lovely counselors are answering some questions. This is great. Okay, so I am going to, okay, before I do that, I want to just finish this compliance piece, and that will help us move into the next part of Canvas, where I can show you where the workshop form is. The other thing is an academic advising meeting. So I already mentioned why this is important. Why should you be meeting with your academic advisor? And so we created a form that you can share with your advisor. So all the forms that we're going to give you are PDF forms. So you can print them out. And if you have a physical meeting with your counselor, if you have a physical meeting with your advisor, you can bring it. but everything otherwise, it's fillable online. So we know most of the meetings with academic advisors right now are virtual. So you can send it to them via email and ask them, hey, I'm required to do this as part of EOF. Most of the advisors have been here a really long time, so they're very familiar with this, so that it wouldn't surprise them to get this form. But basically, this form it's a good tool for you because it outlines some questions that you can ask during your academic advising meeting just to make sure you're on track. Are you good with your classes for your major? Are there internships that you should be looking into? What about independent studies, research, all of these type of things that come up that you may forget to ask sometimes when you're in these meetings. These meetings tend to be quick, so it's a good tool to go in prepared. And then there's also a portion at the bottom that talks about your next steps. So you can write it out for yourself. Okay, we talked about this today. My advisor told me I need to take these classes to be able to graduate on time. They also recommended this, that, and the other. Let me write this down so that I can share this with my EOF counselor. And then you guys can talk about it and make sure that you're staying on track. It's really easy, especially now virtually, to forget all of these things, right? You might go to a meeting and they might recommend all these things. And you're like, wait, what did they say? I can't remember. So this will hopefully, having it written down and having a physical piece of paper or a virtual document that you can share with your counselor will help keep all of these things in mind for you as you move forward. Okay, so now that I've kind of talked a lot about that, I want to talk about Canvas because that goes right into Canvas where a lot of these forms already are. So I'm going to go to our Canvas page and talk a little bit about what things you should be looking for on here. So we know that you're probably part of a lot of Canvas pages because most classes now have a Canvas component, even if they're not fully online. But we ask that you regularly check the EOF page. As you notice, we have a lot of announcements, and that's one of the biggest things that we're going to use Canvas for. So it's easier than sending you group emails. We know you get a ton of emails. So announcements, checking the announcements constantly. You'll get announcements generally from me, like you did the past couple of days about the spring semester. Your counselors will send individual announcements. You may get announcements about your workshops. So there's going to be all sorts of things on here. So just making it a habit to check it, if not every day, just a quick second, checking it at least once a week, just to make sure you don't miss out anything. We also have a lot of great opportunities that come up. So if you notice, I posted on something on Monday about a Pulse info session that's happening tomorrow if you are pre-med. And so this is an example of an opportunity that comes up that we want to make available to you and that we'll put on Canvas. So just make sure that you're constantly checking. So announcements is number one. So that's right at the top of the page when you log in. The other thing is Spring 22 resources. So this is where you're going to find all the forms that I was talking about. So you're going to see, for example, I'll show you our workshops. So it's going to probably be slow for me, but if you download this, it's going to show you all the workshops that the first year workshop semester for this semester. So there you go. So here's your first year workshops. Those are all the open workshops that I mentioned. We have many of them this semester. So you'll see a lot of options for you to choose from. And then these are your cohort workshops on the side. So there'll be one for each class year. So I'm going to go back real quick. So you'll see one for each class year. So you'll pick yours. Open it up and it'll have the same open workshops for everybody and then your specific cohort workshops. You'll also find the academic advising form that I just showed you on the screen and your responsibility agreement that your counselor will share with you. So you'll have access to these forms at any time. You can view them and look through them. And if you have questions, let us know. One thing I want to note here is that this is where the workshop log is, right? So your counselor or your workshop presenter, when you go to a workshop and it is run by one of our counselors, they are going to send the link to you during the workshop if it's virtual. So they'll probably put it in the chat at the beginning or the end of the workshop and say, hey, don't forget, you got to do a workshop log, right? But you might attend a workshop that is not specifically run by us or a counselor. And so you may not get that link. So if you're like, oh yeah, I have to do this, where do I go? It's right at the top of Spring 22 resources. So when you go here, you can actually fill it in right from the page, which is really convenient, or you can click this link and it will bring you to the workshop log. And so it's pretty easy to follow, but you go through each individual step, you put who your EOF counselor is, you'll pick which workshop, I guess the best way to say it is cohort, or if it's an open workshop, or if it's something else from the university. So you're able to go in there and say it's a career center workshop, that's what you would pick, an other workshop. And so then you'd go through and you would fill out the form, because so say if you say it's a freshman cohort workshop, then you're going to see all of the series right here. So, I went to the Spring Forward one, which is next week. And then it's going to ask you to fill in some key takeaways. What did you learn? And questions and comments, and then you submit. It really only should take you like 5 minutes. What I suggest is doing it right at the end of the workshop or the same day. If you do that, everything will be fresh, and it will be really helpful for you. One thing I did see a student do last semester that I thought was awesome, and I was like, everyone should do it this way. If you're watching it virtually, for example, like the workshop, which a lot of our workshops are this semester, you can fill out the workshop form as you're doing it. So if there's some things that come up and you're like, oh, that's really important, or that's something that really resonates with me, you can take notes. And so then when it's time to fill it out, you just submit it and say, these are my key takeaways. These are some things that were really resonating with me as I was listening to the workshop. So then it's easier to remember, as opposed to having to remember like a week later, what did we talk about in that workshop? What do I have to write? So just some talking points, but I just wanted to show you. So I'm going to go back where it's located. So Spring 22 resources, that's where you can find all of your workshop forms, the workshop log, as well as a responsibility agreement and academic advising form. So that's going to be, those are two main things that I want you to look at. But another great thing too is that we have a calendar. And so you should be able to see on the side all the links to the workshops that are coming up. And this will include all of the Zoom links. So there's one tomorrow with Mrs. Rubright. And so if you click on the links, it's going to bring you to our calendar and you will see the Zoom meeting. So if you're ever wondering where the Zoom links are, they are in our calendar. Your workshop presenter might also send them to you. So they may put them on Canvas and say, hey, reminder, it's tomorrow, here's the link. But if you don't see it or that doesn't happen, you can always go into our calendar and you will see all the Zoom links for your workshops. So you can go right in here and access them. So I'm going to go back. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick pause. Okay, so I'm just looking at it, make sure I understand. Okay, so I know this is a lot, but we're only doing this because we've gotten a lot of students saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know where I'm supposed to find things. What's on Canvas. So this is just a way for you guys to know where everything is. Okay. So I'm recording this. I'm going to put this on Canvas so you guys can check it out if you're like, I don't remember what she said. So I apologize if this is dry and boring, but honestly, that's part of my job, is being dry and boring. So I'm going to have to, give you guys all of the rules and the things that we're asking you to do. And I just want to make sure we're all on the same page so that there's no confusion. So I'm going to go back, talked about Canvas. Hopefully you'll take the time to peruse it a little bit more. And okay. So the last thing I really want to talk about before we do breakout rooms is just communication. So a lot of you, I just even noticed in the chat when I was looking through that you talked about, I might have classes during certain workshop times. What do I do? What if I can't meet during, what if your meetings and I don't line up, and we know this comes up, right? You're not just a student. Many of you are working close to full-time hours. Some of you are caregivers. Some of you are parents. Some of you have many other responsibilities outside of school. And so we don't expect that everything's going to line up all the time. We don't expect that you're going to be able to make every workshop or every meeting. We do know things that happen. However, we can't help you if we don't know. So one of the things that your counselors often mention to me is that they don't hear from students and it worries them, right? So they'll reach out to you via email, they'll text you, they will message you on Raptor Connect. They will basically borderline stalk you as much as possible, but get nothing back, right? So you leave them on red, which, okay, I get it, like you're busy and maybe you forget to write back, but then If you come at the end of the semester and say, I didn't know, or I couldn't go to these meetings, it's hard for them to advocate for you if you're not communicating back, right? And this doesn't just have to do with EOF compliance. If you're struggling in a class, say that a lot of students have mentioned in the past, especially since we've been virtual, that they're struggling with their professors, that their professors aren't communicative, or they're having issues with assignments in class. And we're here to help advocate for you, but we have to know, right? So the earlier you tell us that there's a struggle, we will advocate and help you, point you in the right direction, whether that's going to Dean of Students, whether that's, writing an email to someone on your behalf, but we need to know. So if you are struggling with meeting EOF requirements, with things with your classes, whether it's, the coursework, communication with professors, just let us know. The earlier you let us know, the more we can help you. We also want to know if you're experiencing any things like housing insecurity, food insecurity, personal issues like mental health struggles. All of that stuff is really real. We want to help you. We want to get you the support that you need. But if we don't hear from you, we're just kind of assuming that you don't care, or you're ghosting us, or you don't want to be in the program, or we don't know. There's a lot of things that we assume, and we don't want to assume. We want to know. So we want to make sure that we're supporting you the way that you need to be supported this semester. We expect that things are going to come up, and we are always willing to be flexible. We're willing to replace a workshop, have a meeting online, do something over the phone. We're willing to work with you in any way that needs to be worked with, but you have to communicate with us. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So if you remember anything from this presentation today, please communicate with us. Please respond when your counselor reaches out to you. Acknowledge, that they're reaching out. Let them know what's going on with you so that they can, make sure that they're supporting you in the right way. Okay. So I'm almost done, I promise. I know this is a lot, but I just want to, funding questions come up a lot during the semester. And so I want to make sure you guys are all on the same page about that too. Typically your EOF grant will not come out until maybe the second or the third week in the semester. So if you don't see it right now or immediately on your term bill, that doesn't mean that there's automatically an issue. Typically for whatever reason, it's delayed, right? So you're not going to get your grant the second that the semester starts, especially now that we're in the add drop period. Financially, make sure that you are full-time before your EOF grant releases. Some of you are not currently full-time, and I have reached out to you if that's the case. So that's also why it gets delayed. We have to make sure that you're registered and you're also a full-time student before your funding gets released. So if you don't see it today, it's okay. It doesn't mean that there's anything particularly wrong. However, please make sure that you're checking your HESA account and your financial aid account regularly. I had a lot of students last semester who didn't get funding right away because they owed documents to either HESA or to the financial aid office. So just a good point of reference, make sure you're checking pretty often, right? So make sure you're maybe logging into HESA, I don't know, once every couple of weeks to make sure they're not sending you any notifications. Log into your financial aid account, make sure they're not asking for anything. That way you don't have to worry about anything with your funding. And that's not just EOF, it would be all your financial aid. Your tuition aid grant won't go through, or anything won't go through if you owe anything to financial aid. So just make sure as a regular practice that you're checking those portals. If you owe anything right now to HESA, you can submit documents until March 1st or 30 days from when you got your initial notification. So this, a lot of times they're asking for additional documentation. So if you have anything pending right now, you probably know because you do not have tuition, you don't have your TAG grant or your EOF grant. You probably also have heard from me several times. So just make sure you're checking HESA and that you're submitting any documents so you don't lose out on your funding for the semester. Typically, you're going to get a lot of stuff from HESA in the fall, so just make it a good practice that as you approach the fall semester that you're checking your HESA account, that you don't owe any documents. Okay. So a couple key takeaways, because I've said a lot, and I'm boring myself with all of these particulars, but it has to be done. So just a couple of things, if you remember anything from today, just make sure that you're staying on top of your compliance. So meetings, workshops, academic advising, talk to your counselor. They will tell you exactly what you need to do if you're not sure. Check Canvas regularly for workshop updates, anything related to workshops, updates from us, announcements related to university things, opportunities, anything. So you just make sure you're checking Canvas constantly. Check your financial aid portal and New Jersey FAMS frequently, and communication is key. So above all else, please make sure you're talking to us. Without that communication, we cannot support you in the way that you need to be supported. So just please make sure you're telling us what's up. Okay, so before I go into this last piece, check your email, yes. Okay, I'm just going through the chat real quick. Okay. One last thing before I do open up breakout rooms for you and your counselors is that we're going to need your help. So we are going to ask that students help us reiterate the value and impact of EOF by writing letters to your local legislators. So some of you who are seniors may have remembered this from a few years ago. So we did a campaign like this. Some people even spoke to our legislators in person about the value and importance of EOF. So we are lucky that we are highly supported by Governor Murphy with EOF, and he has given a lot of support over the past few years, but we can always use more support, right? So EOF is a state-funded program. It is not a guaranteed program. It could go away at any time. So to make sure that legislators know the value and importance of our program and how it impacts students like you, we're going to ask that you help us write some letters that we're going to give to our local legislators. I'm going to do most of the work for you. So I'm going to create a form letter. All you're going to have to do is just write a few sentences about how has EOF personally impacted you? How has it helped you maybe academically, personally? How has it helped you in college? And then I'm going to put all of this stuff on Canvas for you to use, and I'll make it an announcement. But we could really use guys help represent Rutgers-Camden EOF and show our local, lawmakers about how important EOF is and how it really impacts lives from your guys' voices, not us, from you guys, because you guys are the ones who matter, right? Okay. So that's all I want to do in terms of talking, and I wanted to move it to your breakout room. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of stop sharing. But as I work on this, I want to invite our EOF counselors if any questions came up in the chat while I couldn't really see while I was presenting that I need to address as a larger group before I open up your guys' breakout rooms.
If I could jump in, firstly, Happy New Year, everybody. One of the students who was, I think it was Hannah, amazing Hannah, noticed that my first workshop on the 26th that has the time of 12:20 or 12:45, but that's actually a typo. So it's going to be fixed. It's actually 11:20. So if you put that on your calendar already for 12:45, it's not actually going to run that time. That's free period is over at 12:45 on that particular first date of the 26th. So we're going to adjust that on our end, but for all freshmen, this is a message only for freshmen. The 26th, which is my first workshop next week, that's going to start at 11:20 a.m. 11:20, and the rest of it I'll double check and make sure all the other times is consistent with free period. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. Yes, we will adjust that. Is there other things that came up that I need to address before I open up your guys' breakout rooms? Okay. So I just want to thank you guys for listening to this. Like I said, I hate having these type of meetings where I have to kind of lecture or do this much talking in general, but I hope this was helpful in help clearing up some questions that you all may have had about what is required of me, where can I find things, what do I have to do? As I said, you're gonna have more information come at you from your counselor. They will talk about this more in detail with you one-on-one, so you don't have to remember everything, but hopefully it will help you kind of be all of us on the same page about what do I have to do as an EOF student. So what I am going to do is I'm going to open up breakout rooms, and you're going to have the ability to choose your own breakout room. So it's going to be named by your EOF counselor. So when you see that come up, choose the room with your counselor. If you accidentally choose the wrong room, you'll pretty much be bounced back into this room. And so I can put you back in to whatever room you need. So I'm going to do that in a second. So you should see it come up now. So choose your counselor's room so that you can connect with them and have any questions that you may have. Joseph, I do see your question, so I'm going to double check who your counselor is for you.